Sometimes the biggest shifts in our lives don't begin with a job change, a new mindset, or a lucky break. Sometimes they begin at the threshold, quietly, without warning. The place you pass through every day without thinking, the space between what you face outside and what you feel inside, is often the very place where your energy either lifts or leaks. And strangely enough, most people never notice it. The front door, the entryway, that small few square feet where your keys land, your shoes pile up, your packages drop. It might seem trivial, but if you've been feeling stuck, if your progress always slips just beyond reach, or if life seems to push more than pull, this may be where your shift begins. Because in Feng Shui, the entrance is never just an architectural feature. It's not just wood and hinges and light switches. It is the mouth of Qi, the energy gate that determines what enters your life and what quietly turns away. It's your home's first impression on the universe. And depending on what stands there, what faces it, what blocks it, what greets it, it can either invite support, luck, clarity, or confusion, resistance, and slow deterioration. This isn't superstition. It's symbolic logic. It's environmental psychology. It's centuries of observation grounded in the understanding that space speaks, not with words, but with signals, repeating patterns, rhythms you can feel even when you can't explain them. And nowhere is this more true than the space just inside your front door. Now let me ask you something, not as a guru, not as a teacher, but as someone who's spent years walking through hundreds of homes, feeling the difference between a house that supports its owner and one that subtly wears them down. What's the first thing you see when you step inside your own home? Not just with your eyes, but with your nervous system. Does your breath soften, or do you brace yourself? Do you feel anchored, or already off balance? And if the answer leans toward friction, restlessness, fatigue, you might be living in a space that is unintentionally rejecting the very things you've been trying to call in. And here's the surprising part. Most of the time, it's not the house itself. It's not the scene, it's not the pawn, it's not the layout. It's the entrance. A single misplaced mirror, a pile of forgotten shoes, an old umbrella that never dries, a trash bin visible from the outside, a collection of sharp tools or lifeless decor. These small elements, barely noticed, carry energetic weight, and together they form the first sentence your house says to the universe on your behalf. In the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through the most common mistakes I've seen in entryways, and the small, beautiful adjustments you can make to turn your home's first impression into a quiet magnet for support, abundance, and clarity. Not by buying expensive charms or turning your hallway into a temple, but by noticing, by understanding what your entrance is saying and choosing to speak a new message through shape, placement, and intention. Before we step into that though, if this kind of content resonates with you, I want to gently ask for a small offering in return. A like, a share, or a comment means more than you think. And if you haven't yet, I'd be honored if you subscribe to New Day Mindfulness. I'm quietly working toward a milestone of 1,000 followers, and each new presence helps me reach more people with these grounded, healing insights about space, energy, and the choices we live with every day. If this video adds something valuable to your day, I hope you'll pass it forward. Now let's take a closer look at that doorway. Not as a decoration, not as a utility, but as a portal. What does it really say about you, and what would you like it to say instead? Section 1, Common Entrance Disruptors that Drain Energy. 1. Mirrors facing the front door. Full analysis. There is a distinct difference between light and reflection. One brings energy in, the other sends it back out. And that difference becomes especially critical when it comes to mirrors, particularly when one is placed directly facing the front door of a home. In Feng Shui, the front door is not just a physical boundary. It is the mouth of Qi, the single most important portal through which all external energy, support, opportunity, and influence enter the home. It is the invitation, the handshake, the declaration of readiness. What you place directly in front of it, therefore, is not just design, it's a statement. When a mirror faces the door, whether it's a sleek, full-length decorative piece or a simple glass pane hung for brightness, its energetic function is to reflect, and it does so literally and symbolically. Whatever enters the home, money, helpful people, new beginnings, grounded peace, is bounced right back toward the outside world. It is not absorbed, it is not settled, it is rejected. You may not notice it at first, but over time, the pattern becomes unmistakable. You feel like you're always starting over. Projects stall, plans fall apart at the last minute, guests don't linger. You get attention, but not commitment. You attract opportunities, but they pass by. You may even feel a subtle restlessness when you walk into your own home, as if you're not fully welcome, even in your own space. From a symbolic perspective, the mirror is not neutral. It is an amplifier of light. Yes, but also a deflector of force. In some contexts, this is a blessing. Mirrors placed strategically to reflect abundance, such as a lush garden or lively family gathering area, can double the vitality of that zone. But when placed directly across from the door, the literal threshold of incoming support, they cancel out the very energy you are trying to receive. It's as if you're saying to the universe, "Thank you, but no thank you, I'm not ready." The mistake is common, especially in modern interiors where mirrors are used to open up space or make a narrow entryway feel more expansive. But in doing so, people unintentionally sabotage their energetic welcome. Instead of expanding energy, they expel it. The entrance becomes visually brighter but vibrationally weaker. Let's look at the behaviors this tends to create within the home because they're often subtle but persistent. Residents in homes with mirrors facing the door often report a chronic sense of not landing. This could manifest as scattered thoughts, difficulty following through on goals, feeling energetically drained after work even when nothing tangible happened. It might also show up socially, neighbors who visit but don't stay, friendships that remain surface level, professional relationships that hover in limbo. In some cases, it even affects how the home holds finances. Money comes in but slips through. Income is earned but not retained. These are not superstitions. They are patterns. And mirrors are pattern activators. But it's not just about the mirror itself. It's about what the mirror sees. A mirror facing a cluttered door or one with shoes piled nearby amplifies chaos. A mirror that reflects a messy coat rack or a trash bin will energetically reinforce those images. Think of it as a second voice in the room repeating whatever it observes. Now imagine if that voice is positioned at the first point of entry into your life space. What message is it echoing every time the door opens? So how do you fix this without tearing down your design aesthetic or remodeling the entire space? The answer lies not in rejecting mirrors, but in repositioning them. A mirror in the entryway is not automatically bad. It becomes problematic only when it directly faces the door. If the mirror is moved to a side wall, parallel to the doorway rather than opposing it, it can still reflect light without deflecting energy. If it's angled to capture a glimpse of something joyful, a potted plant, a soft bench, an inspiring piece of art, it enhances what is already nourishing. The function shifts from rejection to reinforcement. In narrow entryways where people feel tempted to place mirrors for space expansion, consider using a reflective surface with a lower intensity, such as a glass console table, a soft metallic sculpture, or a decorative surface with subtle sheen. These offer light movement without activating full reflective force. The shape of the mirror also matters. In Feng Shui, round or oval mirrors are gentler. They symbolize continuity, inclusiveness, softness. Sharp-edged mirrors, especially large rectangular ones with angular frames, feel more assertive. If you must keep a mirror nearby, opt for one that is rounded and framed in a material that matches the 5-element profile of your home. Wood frames bring growth energy. Earth-tone frames offer stability. Metal frames reflect intellect, but can be too cold if placed without warmth nearby. Another overlooked factor is height. A mirror positioned at eye level has a very different impact than one hung too high or too low. If it's too high, it creates a sense of inaccessibility, as if the reflection is unreachable. Too low and it pulls energy downward. Ideally, the mirror should be hung so it reflects the upper half of the torso of an average height person. symbolizing dignity, awareness, and uprightness. Some people ask whether placing plants or objects between the mirror and the door can block the reflection. The truth is, this only works partially. While it may soften the visual harshness, the core issue remains. The mirror is still facing the flow of incoming energy. A better solution is to rotate the mirror slightly so its surface turns inward, towards something beautiful and vital within the home. This signals that the home welcomes energy, processes it, and holds it with care. One client I worked with had a stunning full-length mirror facing her entryway. She loved the aesthetic, but she also struggled with chronic financial instability and frequent career setbacks. Despite being qualified, experienced, and consistent, we didn't remove the mirror. We reframed it, both literally and figuratively. We swapped out the sharp silver frame for a natural oak one. We rotated it 30 degrees to face the staircase, which she had just cleaned and adorned with a bamboo plant. Within weeks, she began receiving callbacks from companies she had applied to months earlier. She told me, "It's like the house stopped pushing everything away." This is the power of subtle environmental shift. You don't need to tear your space apart. You just need to ask the right questions. What am I showing to the outside world the moment they step in? What is my house saying before I even speak? And is my mirror telling a story I still believe in? 2. Clutter. Shoes, wet umbrellas, or trash bins. In Feng Shui, no gesture is too small, no placement too insignificant. Everything at the entryway speaks, softly but steadily, shaping how energy enters and how it is received. And few things speak louder or more persistently than clutter, especially the kind that accumulates slowly, invisibly, under the pretense of convenience. Shoes, umbrellas, trash bins, these are not inherently negative objects. They are necessities. But when left unchecked, uncontained, or in chaotic arrangements, they become symbolic echoes of disarray, anchors of old energy that interfere with the clarity of what wants to arrive. Let us begin with shoes. In Feng Shui, shoes are not just clothing. They are carriers of experience. They go where you go. They touch every surface you encounter. They hold the memory of movement, so when they accumulate in piles at the front door, untouched, unchosen, mismatched, or neglected, they do more than take up space. They become a visual and energetic archive of outdated journeys. The pair you wore when you quit a bomb, the sandals from a vacation that didn't bring joy, the worn sneakers from a past version of yourself you no longer feel connected to. Layered together, they project a silent message. This space is occupied by the past. And that message, whether spoken or not, influences how the present unfolds. From a spatial perspective, shoe clutter narrows the entry. It creates a bottleneck of attention. When you or your guests walk in, the first impression becomes not welcome, but negotiation. Where can I step? What should I avoid? The Qi too must navigate, swerving, hesitating, fragmenting before it has a chance to settle. Over time, this leads to subtle energetic dissonance. You may find yourself feeling drained upon entering your own home. Your thoughts might scatter more quickly. The desire to leave again may arrive before you've even unpacked your bag. There is also a psychological residue here. A crowded entrance often signals a crowded mind. Clutter at the door mirrors clutter in transition. Decisions postponed, emotions unprocessed, movements rehearsed but not released. You might be outgrowing something in your life, but if your shoes are still anchoring the version of you who made those past choices, then part of your energy stays stuck in that loop. Feng Shui offers a correction that is simple but powerful. Choose. Choose what remains at the door. Choose what is stored, hidden, donated, or symbolically released. A rack with 3 to 5 pairs is sufficient. Those used frequently and with purpose. Arrange them neatly. Let each pair face the same direction. Bring symmetry into your leaving and returning. Now we turn to umbrellas. At first glance, they are harmless, a tool of weather, not of energy. But in Feng Shui, moisture carries symbolic weight. It represents emotion, flow, intuition, but also heaviness, stagnation, unresolved energy. When umbrellas are left wet near the entrance, they introduce damp qi into the very zone meant to protect and nourish. It may not seem important, But consider this: a wet umbrella leaning against the door or dripping onto the floor creates an energetic echo of emotional unease. It brings in the outside and keeps it there. And if left to sit and soak, it begins to tell the space. This is a place where mess lingers, where transitions are not clean. There is also the matter of smell and texture. Dampness attracts must. Must attracts stillness. And stillness at the wrong location, like the entryway, slows down everything: money, clarity, communication, and even digestion. You may find yourself procrastinating more, losing track of small tasks, or feeling emotionally overcast without explanation. What's the remedy? Designate a drying zone away from the door. It can be as small as a tucked corner or as elegant as a stand with airflow. The ritual is simple: return, drain, and restore. Don't leave emotional weather at the threshold of your life. Transition through it with awareness, not absorption. Now the trash bin, perhaps the most underestimated disruptor of all. While we may be vigilant about keeping bathrooms clean or kitchens tidy, the trash bin at the front door often slips through our attention. We place it there for convenience: recycling, outgoing paper, an easy exit path for garbage. But energetically, it declares something else entirely. What enters here is discardable. What begins here ends in rejection. In Feng Shui, trash is not just waste, it is decision. It is what you no longer value. And when the first visual message your home presents is a bin full of rejection, that becomes the tone the space communicates back to you. This can manifest subtly. Clients with visible trash bins at the door often report feeling underappreciated at work. They feel like their contributions are ignored. They give, but receive little in return. This is not coincidence. It is energetic mimicry. The space treats value the same way the entrance treats waste. It lets it be the first thing to greet and the last to stay. So what's the corrective path here? First, relocate the bin. Out of sight does not mean ignored. It means intentional. Use a closed cabinet, a lidded container, or a hallway that doesn't align directly with the mouth of Qi. Second, empty regularly. Make the removal of waste a ceremony of closure. Don't just take out the trash, complete the cycle. And third, infuse dignity into disposal. Even small touches like a scented sachet, a smooth lid, or a hand towel nearby elevate the relationship between transition and respect. Let us also not forget the emotional undercurrent of these objects. Shoes, umbrellas, bins, these are all tools of the threshold. They belong neither to the world outside nor fully to the home inside. Their power lies in how we manage them, not just where we store them. When they are left in chaos, they whisper confusion. When tended with awareness, they become guardians of clarity. I recall one woman who came to me not for design advice, but because she couldn't figure out why she felt anxious every time she entered her apartment. It wasn't loud, it wasn't messy, but something always made her feel off. Upon visiting, I noticed immediately 15 pairs of shoes scattered at the door, 2 broken umbrellas, a cardboard box half filled with shredded paper, and a small trash bin without a lid. All within the first 5 feet. We didn't touch the rest of the home. We just cleared the entry. 3 pairs of shoes stayed, the rest were stored or donated. The umbrellas were dried, repaired, or removed. A closed bin was placed inside a utility closet, and on a small shelf, we added 1 soft plant. The shift was immediate. She later told me, "I don't feel like I'm fighting to come home anymore." And that's the essence of this work, not to change everything, but to release what no longer serves as a welcome. When the threshold becomes clear, the life beyond it becomes more available. 3. Sharp objects in view: knives, scissors, harsh tools. Not all tension in a home is loud. Some of it settles into the background, humming beneath the surface. Never quite dramatic enough to name, but always present. It shows up in small frictions. Words that come out sharper than intended, silences that feel heavier than they should, restlessness without cause. And often it is quietly anchored by objects we overlook. Among them, the most underestimated culprits are sharp tools: knives, scissors, shears, open blades, pointed decor. and their placement, particularly near the entrance, carries more symbolic weight than we might imagine. In Feng Shui, these items are not just utilitarian. They are symbols of precision, separation, and severance. They serve a necessary function, cutting, shaping, refining. But when exposed in the wrong place, particularly where energy enters, they introduce what is known as cutting qi. This is not metaphorical. It is energetic shorthand for what the space begins to communicate: alertness, caution, protection, and division. To understand this, consider the nature of qi itself. It seeks flow. It moves like water, around curves, through openings, into warmth. When qi encounters sharpness, it scatters, it recoils, it becomes fragmented. And fragmented qi leads to fragmented experience. Relationships with less ease, conversations with less harmony, and a home atmosphere that feels more like a place to defend than a place to land. Now imagine placing a knife block on a kitchen island directly visible from the front door, or leaving a pair of scissors on an entry table, or decorating with a metal sculpture made entirely of spikes, blades, or angular shards. These choices, while seemingly aesthetic or functional, deliver a subconscious message: enter with caution. This space has edge. For many, the impact is subtle at first, but over time you may notice an emotional tone shift. Children may become more reactive. Partners may speak more tersely. You may feel more mentally on guard, even in your downtime. It becomes harder to relax, harder to reconnect, harder to feel truly safe. The body, after all, responds to visual cues faster than logic. A visible blade, even decorative, is processed first by the survival brain, not the aesthetic one. Feng Shui does not ask you to remove knives from the home. It asks you to respect their place. In a kitchen drawer, they serve their purpose. Behind a cabinet, they support nourishment. But in plain view, at a threshold or resting place, they shift from tool to signal, from something used intentionally to something that shapes mood unconsciously. The same principle applies to scissors and shears. While they may be small when placed on a desk, in an entry tray, or near a window, they become visual punctuation marks. They cut the flow of attention. They break the line of calm. And in a home-seeking cohesion, where relationships are already fragile or communication is strained, this sharpness does not heal, it reinforces. Now let us consider decor. The modern design aesthetic often favors clean lines, exposed steel, industrial motifs, and jagged silhouettes. These may look bold, but energetically, they activate the nervous system in a way that mimics confrontation. Spiky art above a couch creates subtle imbalance. Sword-like objects near a mirror amplify visual tension. Even abstract forms, triangular planters, aggressive lighting fixtures, or narrow-edged clocks, contribute to a sense of urgency rather than ease. And when placed at the entrance, where the home first makes its impression, these forms invite intensity, not harmony. So how do we soften this? First, by restoring intention to the presence of these objects. A knife stored with care is a respectful extension of the kitchen's purpose. A pair of scissors in a closed box becomes a tool of creativity, not conflict. A sharp-edged item placed away from direct line of sight lets energy stabilize before encountering the edge. Second, we look to contrast. The visual field responds to balance. If one object is sharp, pair it with something round. If a surface is metallic, add warmth with a wood accent. If an angular piece of art must stay, offset it with a fabric curtain, a rug with natural patterns, or a small bowl of polished stones. These are not aesthetic tricks, they are energy corrections. They say to the qi, yes, there is edge here, but there is softness too. You may flow. One client I worked with had a beautifully minimal entry hall, but centered on the facing wall was a collection of ornamental daggers framed in glass. They were heirlooms, deeply meaningful, but placed at eye level directly in the sightline of the door. He wondered why his friends never stayed long, why conversations always felt a little formal. We didn't discard the daggers, we relocated them to a study where their symbolism could support discernment and strength. In their place, we hung a soft, abstract landscape, brushstroke curves in warm hues. The shift was instant. It feels like the house exhaled. he said. In smaller homes where space is limited, the goal is not perfection, but attention. A single aggressive item near the door can be buffered by a round mirror nearby or a piece of textile art. If you must place tools near the entry, say for convenience, consider using woven baskets, covered trays, or furniture with hidden compartments. These allow you to live practically without sacrificing energy integrity. We must also consider the emotional residue of these items. Knives and scissors, especially those used frequently, hold memory. A blade used in haste, a tool handled in frustration. If never cleansed, physically or symbolically, they carry an energetic imprint. Over time, they become not just sharp, but reactive. You may find yourself snapping at loved ones more often when these tools are too visible, too familiar. The solution isn't fear, it's care. Clean your tools, store them with dignity, handle them with pause, and most of all, keep them out of the sightline of your home's invitation point. Let your doorway communicate openness, not defense. Let it reflect cohesion, not fragmentation. Because sharpness has its place in the kitchen, in the workshop, in moments of deliberate clarity. But the front of your home is not a place for edge. It is a place for arrival, for grounding, for alignment. Let your guests, your family, and your own returning self be met not with a subtle warning, but with welcome. Let energy enter without flinching. Let your home's first gesture be round, grounded, calm. Section 2. What to add for positive entrance energy. 1. The thoughtful doormat, a gateway of intention. When it comes to the energetic life of a home, few objects are more underestimated than the doormat. Often viewed as purely utilitarian, a place to wipe your shoes or trap dust, its subtle power in Feng Shui is rarely acknowledged, and even less frequently honored. But if the front door is the mouth of Qi, then the doormat is its threshold filter. It is the line between outer turbulence and inner coherence. It is the very first message your home sends, to you, to your guests, and to the energy you wish to receive. Let's begin not with superstition, but with logic. The doormat is the first surface you physically contact before crossing into your private world. It's what your feet meet before your body relaxes. That tactile experience, whether clean or dirty, soft or rough, intentional or neglected, immediately informs your nervous system what kind of environment you're about to enter. In Feng Shui, we refer to this as energy preconditioning. The surface at the door sets the tone for the home. A frayed, muddy, or random mat transmits confusion. It suggests carelessness. An overly aggressive mat, bright neon colors, hard bristles, abrasive graphics, signals emotional rigidity or unfiltered anxiety. In contrast, a clean, well-placed, thoughtfully chosen doormat speaks calm. It says, pause here, reset. You are entering a place that respects transition. Let's talk symbolism. In traditional Feng Shui, the entry space is known as the Mingtang, a bright hall. It is meant to be expansive, luminous, welcoming. While architecture often determines size and light, the doormat determines intention. A mat is not just something you stand on, it is something you cross over. Symbolically, it becomes the gatekeeper of habits, thoughts, energy, and expectation. When chosen with care, it serves as a silent but persistent affirmation. This home filters, this home chooses, this home does not let everything in just because the door is open. Material matters, natural fibers, coir, jute, sisal, have long been favored not only for their durability, but for their grounding properties. They connect earth energy to movement. They hold traces of the outside world, but only temporarily. Synthetic mats may be practical, but they lack the sensory memory of movement. If you must use them, choose those with texture, not slick plastic, which offers no resistance and thus no transition. A good mat invites a pause, a brief slowing, a signal to the body. You're about to enter something different. Let's move to color. This is where Feng Shui becomes both poetic and precise. Each color activates a specific elemental quality. A green doormat activates wood energy, growth, movement, new beginnings, ideal for homes where residents are undergoing transformation, career shifts, personal healing, family expansion. A red mat activates fire energy, visibility, passion, protection. Best used in homes where motivation needs strengthening or where the entry faces heavy traffic or directional aggression. Yellow or beige mats invite earth energy, stability, nourishment, safety. Perfect for households seeking emotional balance, better health, or familial grounding. Black or navy blue mats correspond to water, wisdom, fluidity, adaptability. These suit intellectual households, solo dwellers, or homes navigating uncertainty. Metallic tones, silver, gold, gray, correspond to metal, precision, clarity, boundaries. Used with care, they offer sharpness, which is best for structured environments or homes seeking focus. The key is not just color for beauty, but color for resonance. What does your household need more of right now? Let your doormat quietly express it. Now consider shape. Square mats suggest grounding, routine, and containment. Round mats soften harsh corners and invite unity. Half-moon shapes work well with arched doors or curved hallways. They balance asymmetry and suggest openness without exposure. Avoid overly jagged or unconventional shapes that confuse the eye and interrupt flow. In Feng Shui, the entry should guide, not challenge. Beyond aesthetics, let's explore function. A neglected mat, one that's soaked, caked with mud, curling at the edges, does more than look bad. It accumulates stuck energy. It says, things linger here. It becomes a holding pattern for all that you are trying to keep out. Weekly cleaning, shaking it out, brushing it, resetting its alignment, is not just cleanliness. It is energetic hygiene. A new doormat can sometimes do more for your mood than a whole house refresh. It's the place where movement meets meaning. There's also a psychological dimension worth considering. When you give attention to the mat, you give attention to transition. You become more conscious of your own arrival. In urban environments where people rush home without pause, the mat becomes a re-entry ritual. In suburban homes where guests enter barefoot, it becomes a boundary. In spiritual homes, it becomes a ground altar, unspoken but clear. Consider this story. A client once told me she felt like her life never had a reset point. Her work followed her home, her thoughts followed her sleep, and she never felt quite off duty. When I visited, I noticed her doormat, faded, synthetic, misaligned, left outside in constant shadow. It was almost invisible. We replaced it with a heavy, woven jute mat in warm gold tones. We centered it beneath a small porch light. On it, we placed a subtle phrase, "Welcome home. Leave the world at the door." She laughed at first, but within days she reported feeling calmer upon entering and more able to let go of work stress. "It's like I finally clock out," she said, "even if just for a minute." This is the power of the overlooked threshold. You don't need incense or crystals, just care. The doormat becomes a teacher, not loud, not mystical, but consistent. It reminds you that the sacred doesn't begin once you sit down. It begins when you arrive, when your foot touches ground with intention. Some additional feng shui guidelines: do not block the mat with shoes or clutter. Do not let it curl or slip. Secure it so the chi has a clean line in. Do not let it become so worn that it vanishes. Let it be seen. Let it speak. Let it hold space for who you are becoming. If your entrance faces a busy street or is directly aligned with a hallway or stairwell, the mat becomes even more critical. It absorbs speed, it tempers intensity. It says to fast-moving energy, slow down before entering. In such cases, choose mats with deeper color saturation, thicker weave, and grounded texture. In calmer, secluded homes, lighter mats with soft patterns or nature motifs do well. They echo the gentle rhythm already present. Remember, this is not about decoration, it's about declaration. What kind of energy do you want stepping into your life every day? Choose your mat accordingly. 2. Wind chimes or gentle movement. There is a quiet kind of power in movement, especially the kind you do not force but simply allow. In the practice of feng shui, few objects capture this principle more gracefully than a wind chime. To the untrained eye, it may seem decorative or whimsical, but within the framework of energy flow, a wind chime is a precision tool, not just for sound, but for stirring life force. for opening stagnant portals, for reminding both space and self that energy, like breath, must move to remain alive. Let's begin with what Feng Shui understands about stillness. Stillness in the right place is healing. It grounds, it anchors. But stillness at the threshold, especially the main entrance of a home, can become a form of dormancy. And when the area around your door remains heavy, quiet, inert for too long, the chi that wishes to enter may hesitate. It may dull. It may turn elsewhere. Doors are not just for entry, they are for invitation. A wind chime at or near the front door sends a message that movement is welcome, that energy has a path, that this home breathes. But not all movement is equal, and not all sound nourishes. The placement, material, tone, and quantity of wind chimes determine whether they harmonize or irritate, awaken or overwhelm. So we must begin with intent. What is the function of this chime? Is it to lift a heavy space? To soften a harsh entry? To interrupt emotional inertia? To create a rhythm where there has been none? When you can answer that question, you can choose your chime. Material matters. Metal chimes, especially those made from aluminum or steel, produce crisp, bright tones. They cut through stillness. This can be helpful in places where the energy feels dull, cluttered, or stagnant. However, when overused or placed in already active areas, their sharpness can create anxiety, and particularly for sensitive individuals or pets. Wooden chimes, on the other hand, offer soft, grounding tones. Bamboo, in particular, creates a hollow, earthy sound that resonates more with the body than the mind. It's ideal for entrances that face natural elements, gardens, trees, winding paths. Ceramic or glass chimes provide a delicate, melodious quality, more suitable for aesthetic calm than energetic activation. In most homes where the entrance sits between street activity and private interior, a wooden or bamboo chime with 3 to 6 rods is ideal. It's not about volume, it's about subtle rhythm. You don't want the chime to demand attention. You want it to participate in the flow. It should ring only when the wind invites it, not when a door slams or footsteps thunder past. The placement is equally important. Never hang a chime directly above the threshold where people walk. This creates subconscious tension, a sense of crossing under a barrier or being monitored by sound. Instead, offset the chime slightly to the side of the doorway, left or right depending on directional flow. If your door opens outward, and place the chime inside the entry path, where wind can reach it but won't blow it too hard. If your door opens inward and faces a wall or a narrow space, consider hanging the chime in the foyer or just outside on a porch beam, not in the immediate pathway. Now consider sound. We live in a noisy world. Not all chimes soothe. A poorly chosen chime can create mental fatigue. High-pitched, dissonant, or overly mechanical tones jolt the nervous system. Choose chimes you can live with, even on windy days. The best test? Stand silently near the entrance. Close your eyes. Imagine returning home late in the evening. The wind stirs. The chime moves. Does the sound feel like a welcome or a warning? Your body knows before your mind does. There is also symbolic weight to consider. In Feng Shui, a chime does more than make sound. It shifts stuck patterns. It clears minor energetic knots. It brings awareness to what was previously ignored. For this reason, many traditional practitioners recommend placing a chime near doors that face long hallways, sharp corners, or descending staircases. In these configurations, energy either rushes too fast or drops too quickly. A chime acts like a gatekeeper, not to block, but to remind. It says, slow down, pass through with care. Another function of wind chimes is psychological. In the modern world, where entrances are often visual and transactional, chimes reintroduce a sensory cue. You hear the home before you fully enter it. You register its tone, its texture. It becomes an active presence, not just a space you pass through. This sensory handshake is particularly valuable for people who feel disconnected from their home, those who arrive distracted, burnt out, emotionally spent. The chime gives them a signal. Here something is different, but restraint matters. One chime is usually enough. 2 if they are carefully balanced, perhaps one outside, one inside. echoing each other like breath and heartbeat. More than that, and the space becomes busy, even chaotic. Especially avoid placing chimes in every room for protection or luck. This is misunderstanding motion for magic. Feng Shui is not about superstition, it is about coherence. Too many chimes confuse the intention, like a symphony with too many soloists. Let one speak. Let it speak well. I once worked with a couple whose front entrance was elegant but lifeless. Everything was aligned. Good lighting, symmetrical plants, clear path, but something was missing. "It's beautiful," the wife said, "but it doesn't feel like it's alive." We introduced a slender bamboo chime hung from a discreet wooden hook just to the right of the door. Nothing flashy, no embellishment. Within days, she reported a shift. Not dramatic, but distinct. "It's like something's breathing again," she said. "Even when I don't hear it, I know it's there." This is the essence of subtle movement. You don't need bells that ring every minute. You need presence, a sign that your home is responsive, that it listens, that it stirs when the world moves. Some final nuances. If your entrance faces heavy urban noise, use the chime sparingly. Pair it with earth elements to ground its vibration. If your entrance feels too open or exposed, a chime can provide energetic closure. If you're in transition, moving house, healing from loss, resetting your life, a chime with fewer rods and lower tones can serve as a gentle companion, one that rings not to startle but to soothe. And above all, keep the chime clean. Dust accumulates, so does emotional residue. Gently wipe the rods or tubes with a damp cloth every few weeks. If made of bamboo or wood, add a few drops of natural oil to prevent cracking and to deepen its tone. These small acts are not chores, they are participation. They say to the space, "I care how you speak." In the language of Feng Shui, sound is not background, it is communication. And wind chimes, when placed with care, become more than objects. They become stewards of flow, of calm, of return. 3. One meaningful Feng Shui symbol. In Feng Shui, every object carries a vibration, not only because of its material form, but because of the intention projected into it. And while entire books have been written about the use of symbolic talismans, the truth is, it only takes one to shift the entire energetic dialogue of a space, if chosen and placed with clarity. This is especially true at the entrance of your home, where energy first encounters identity, where the space introduces itself, where your values, whether visible or not, begin to shape the experience of all who enter. The modern home is often bombarded with objects, statues, charms, coins, dragons, frogs, mirrors, crystals, bells, knots, and scrolls. But Feng Shui is not about accumulation, it is about intention. When too many symbols compete for attention, they dilute each other's power. Like overlapping voices speaking different languages, they create noise, not clarity. And nowhere is this more consequential than at the front door, where the first impression sets the tone for everything that follows. The entrance is not a gallery, it is a declaration. And declarations must be precise to be effective. This is where the practice of using one meaningful symbol comes in. It's not minimalism for the sake of design, it's energetic strategy. You are asking, what do I most want to invite into this space? And how can one object speak that message with strength and stillness? Let's begin with the Piyao, also known as Pixiu, a traditional Feng Shui creature known for attracting wealth, protecting against misfortune, and guarding territory. With the head of a dragon, the body of a lion, and wings that symbolize the ability to carry fortune from heaven to earth. The Piyao has long been regarded as a loyal guardian. But more important than its origin story is its posture. It looks outward, it guards forward. When placed near a door, facing the direction of incoming energy, it suggests protection without aggression, readiness without fear. One is enough. Two, if paired symmetrically, should be mere Huan, one on each side of the entry, facing slightly outward. Never place a Piyao inside a cabinet, under a table, or facing a wall. It is a sentinel, not a souvenir. Then there are polished stones, simple, elegant, and often overlooked. A single crystal cluster, a piece of obsidian, a sphere of rose quartz or citrine, These hold quiet power. Their strength lies in stillness. They do not announce themselves. They do not distract. Instead, they ground. A stone placed at the corner of the entry table or along the baseboard of the wall beside the door becomes an anchor. In energetic terms, it stabilizes transition. It reminds the body to settle as it arrives. It supports the chi in pooling gently rather than rushing or scattering. Choosing a stone requires a felt connection. Forget textbook definitions. Hold the stone in your palm, feel its weight, notice what rises. Choose not what looks popular, but what resonates with what you wish to reinforce. Citrine, often used for abundance, may suit one household, but obsidian, for grounding, or rose quartz, for emotional harmony, may suit another. The question is always the same. What does this space need now? What am I ready to receive? Another powerful yet simple symbol is a wealth bowl or coin dish, a small vessel containing a few carefully selected items. 1 or 2 coins, a red thread, a slip of paper with a word written in your own hand. This is not a display. It is not meant to impress. It is meant to declare. The bowl says this home welcomes value, holds it, and multiplies it. But again, restraint is key. Do not stuff it with trinkets or leftover keys. Do not leave it in disarray. Keep the vessel small, the contents intentional, and the placement visible but dignified. It should not be under the mail or hidden beneath dust. It should feel sacred, even in its simplicity. The danger of over-symbolizing a space, particularly a threshold, is that it begins to confuse energy. The home cannot decide what to emphasize. One statue asks for protection, another for wealth, a third for love, a fourth for creativity. The result? Fragmented chi. You may find that blessings arrive, but inconsistently. People come to your home, but leave quickly. You gain income, but lose it just as fast. The house becomes a space of signals, but no reception. Feng Shui requires coherence. Just like language, symbols must not contradict. So how do you decide what one symbol is best for you? Start by observing the current emotional temperature of your entryway. What do you feel when you pass through it? Heaviness, noise, emptiness, delay? The object you choose should speak to the opposite. If you feel unseen, place something that celebrates identity, a bold shape, a grounded presence. If you feel scattered, choose something round, centered, unified. If your space feels exposed, place a protective symbol that watches outward, not as a warning, but as a companion. Pay attention also to color. In Feng Shui, color is energy condensed into pigment. Red symbolizes protection and vitality. Green welcomes growth. White offers clarity and precision. Black represents depth and trust. Gold invites abundance. Choose a color that complements, not dominates, your existing palette. Let the symbol blend into the home as if it has always belonged. Size matters too. A large sculpture overwhelms a small space. A tiny charm vanishes in a grand foyer. Choose proportion over prominence. The goal is to guide attention, not steal it. The symbol should be discovered, not imposed. Placement is the final act of intention. When you place your chosen symbol, do so with full awareness. Clean the space. Clear the surface. Hold the object in your hands. Take a breath, then place it. Don't just drop it into position. Let it arrive, just like you would a guest of honor. And then, leave it alone. Do not touch it daily. Do not move it back and forth. Let it rest. Let it do its work. Revisit only when something shifts, either in your life or in the tone of the house. Then, and only then, reassess. A story comes to mind. A man I once consulted had placed 7 different lucky charms near his front door. Coins, bells, dragons, lions, a waving cat, even a small incense pot. It's for good luck, he said. But his life felt increasingly chaotic. Clients canceled, arguments arose. Sleep grew restless. We removed everything except one, a simple jade payao his grandfather had given him. We polished it, centered it, and left it alone. Within a month, things stabilized. The chaos didn't disappear, but it stopped entering. Because that's the power of one clear symbol. It says what needs to be said, once cleanly, and that's all the universe needs. Section 3, subtle practices that shift the field. Not every transformation begins with renovation. Not every block requires a hammer. Sometimes the most enduring shifts occur through small, nearly invisible gestures. Subtle practices performed not with grandeur, but with clarity. In Feng Shui, we don't simply alter furniture or hang symbols. We build relationship with space. And this relationship lives in the small, repeated acts that infuse a home with consciousness. These are the practices that may seem ordinary to the eye, but speak directly to the field, the energetic field that connects body, memory, and dwelling. Among these, 3 stand out in particular: intentional cleaning, morning light, and salt. Simple, grounded, and remarkably powerful. Let us begin with cleaning. Cleaning, not just as a chore, but as a ritual. In Western culture, cleaning is often framed as a task, an obligation, a reaction to dirt, a response to mess. But in Feng Shui, cleaning the entrance of a home is not just about removing debris. It is about clearing memory. When you sweep, dust, or wipe the area near your front door, you are not only making it visually acceptable, you are energetically resetting the space between worlds. That threshold, that pause between street and sanctuary, holds the imprint of every step, thought, and emotional imprint that has passed through. To leave it unclean is to let yesterday's fatigue speak first when today arrives. But when you clean with intention, when you move the broom slowly, mindfully, from side to side, or when you gently wipe the handle of the door, the trim, the step, you are doing more than maintenance. You are preparing your home to receive. You are telling it, I see you. I care for the place that welcomes me home. This act, though small, infuses the home with dignity. It returns order not only to the floor, but to the field. A practice I often suggest is this: choose one morning per week to clean the threshold, as if you are preparing for a guest you respect deeply, even if that guest is only yourself. Do not rush. Do not use harsh smells. Instead, open the door for a moment. Sweep outward, not just inward. Remove any leaves, receipts, or forgotten objects. Then wipe the handle, the bell, the mat. Do this not as performance, but as renewal. This process resets the relationship between the home and the outside world. Now let us turn to light. Few things in Feng Shui carry as much raw, transformative energy as sunlight. It is Yang in its purest form, awakening, activating, clarifying. And yet, in many homes, the entryway remains dim. Either by design or by habit, curtains stay drawn, transoms collect dust, and the door, though symbolic of opportunity, never actually receives the light of day. This is not a metaphor. It is a measurable, energetic absence. When natural light touches the front of a home, particularly in the morning, it does more than brighten a hallway. It recharges the field. It signals the qi to awaken. It stirs air molecules, warms surfaces, and resets the biological rhythms of those within. In practical terms, it reduces cortisol buildup, supports circadian balance, and psychologically reduces feelings of lethargy. But more subtly, it signals openness. A doorway that receives light communicates. This home is alert, receptive, and engaged with the day. I recommend a simple daily ritual. If your home layout allows it, open the door or window near the entrance for at least 10 to 15 minutes in the early part of the day. Let the light enter, even if only as a sliver. Let it strike the mat, the handle, the base of the frame. You do not need to stand in it or say anything. Just let it in. This act alone recalibrates the mood of the home. If your entrance faces north or receives limited direct sun, consider using a small reflective surface, a bowl of water, a pale ceramic plate, a subtle mirror off to the side, to catch ambient light and redirect it. The goal is not brightness, it is awareness. You are inviting light not just into space, but into the posture of your home. Finally, the most quietly powerful of all, salt. Salt is one of Earth's oldest cleansing agents, both physically and energetically. In Feng Shui, salt is used not to ward off superstition, but to absorb residue, emotional, environmental, or energetic. And there is perhaps no simpler, more effective placement than a small bowl of roasted salt near the front door. Let's begin with why. Every home collects energy. Every visitor brings a cloud of mood, intention, unspoken thought. Every delivery, every argument, every returning memory leaves trace matter, not visible to the eye, but often felt in the body. Have you ever walked into your own home and felt a heaviness by the door, even when everything looked clean? That is residual qi, old tension, lingering doubt, energetic fog that hasn't yet cleared. Salt, particularly when roasted or activated by heat, has the ability to bind and contain this residue. Here's how to apply it. Take a small ceramic or clay bowl, avoid plastic or metal, fill it with a handful of coarse sea salt or roasted salt, dry roasted on a pan without oil until lightly fragrant. Place it just inside the door, on a shoe rack, on a low shelf, or tucked in a corner. You don't need to explain it, just place it with care. The salt will begin absorbing residual density. You do not need to interact with it daily, but once a while, check on it. If the salt has discolored, clumped, or turned damp, that's a signal it has completed its work. Dispose of it by flushing it with running water, never just into the trash. Rinse the bowl, let it dry in sunlight, and replace with fresh salt. This act, while small, sends a message to your home. I am attending to what remains unseen. Some clients like to add a drop of essential oil, rosemary for clarity, lavender for calm, lemon for freshness. This is optional. The salt itself is enough. What matters most is consistency. Together, these three practices, cleaning, light, salt, form a quiet trinity of reset. They do not draw attention. They do not require belief. But they work, not because of magic, but because of attention. And attention in Feng Shui is the root of power. What you touch with care begins to change. What you maintain with respect begins to grow. What you place with intention begins to respond. Your front door is not just where you step in. It's where life steps toward you. These subtle practices create not just a home that looks clean, but one that feels available, aligned, and awake. Final character. We often think our homes begin at the living room, that the real life of a space unfolds only once we're inside, settled, shoes off, distractions dimmed. But Feng Shui reminds us of a quieter truth. The home begins at the door, not just as an architectural line, but as an energetic one. The entrance is your first conversation with the world. What you place there, what you allow, what you remove, what you ignore, becomes the silent agreement between who you are and what you're ready to receive. So if you've been feeling blocked, rushed, scattered, or even just mildly off, it may not be about your schedule or your goals or your self-discipline. It might be about the threshold, the mirror that reflects energy away, the pile of shoes that clutters your return, the sharp objects that subtly guard instead of welcome, the forgotten doormat that no longer says you matter. But here's the gentle truth. You don't have to change everything. Feng Shui is not about perfection, it's about presence. So today, just choose one item at your door, one symbol, one habit, one small object, and ask it honestly. Does this invite the life I want, or does it keep something beautiful at bay? The doorway is a place of possibility. It doesn't ask you to have all the answers. It just asks you to be willing to notice. And if today's video gave you even a small shift in how you see your space, if it helped you pause, reflect, or soften into a new way of understanding your home, I'd be truly honored if you'd share your experience in the comments below. I'd love to know what you saw differently or what you plan to shift. And if you'd like to continue receiving more grounded Feng Shui teachings like this, gentle insights you can actually use, I warmly invite you to subscribe to this channel, New Day Mindfulness. I'm walking quietly toward the milestone of 1,000 followers, and your presence helps more than you know. A like, a share, even a short comment. Each one helps this work find the people it's meant to reach. Until next time, may your doorway be clear, your home be kind, and your energy flow exactly where it's meant to go.